Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We love to go deep on all sorts of data topics, and today we're diving into something that, might sound a little intimidating, but it's actually really relevant to pretty much every business out there.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about data silos
Mm.
and how to break free from them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, anybody who's ever worked in a company of a decent size has run into this problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
So to kind of set the stage for this deep dive, think about it this way. What if you were, trying to watch a movie,
Yeah.
right? But all the scenes were completely jumbled up
Okay.
and they were scattered across like a bunch of different streaming platforms.
Yeah.
It'd be a mess,
Yeah.
right? You wouldn't be able to follow the plot. You
Yeah.
wouldn't, really understand what was going on. That's kind of what data silos can do to a business.
Yeah, that's a really good analogy, actually. So in simple terms, data silos are basically when information gets trapped in these separate systems within an organization. It's like, each department has its own little vault, and none of those vaults are really talking to each other.
Right. Yeah. It's like they all speak different languages.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, how does this even happen? Like, are companies purposely creating these data silos, or is it just something that kind of naturally happens as they grow?
It's usually not intentional. Think about it. A company starts small. As it grows, different teams need different tools, right? So they might start building their own databases, their own systems. Maybe marketing has a CRM system. Sales has something completely different for tracking leads, and finance is off doing their own thing with their own software. So this kind of organic growth is often what leads to these silos.
Right. So it's not like there's this evil mastermind at the top saying, let's create data silos.
Right, exactly.
It's more like, different departments kind of doing their own thing, and then all of a sudden you've got this mess of data that's all over the place.
Exactly.
Okay, so it's not intentional, but it still sounds like a problem.
Yeah.
So, why should we care about these data silos? What makes them such a headache for businesses?
Well, imagine you're trying to understand customer behavior, right? You want to know everything about your customers, their preferences, their purchase history, what problems they've had, how they interact with your brand. But when that data is locked away in these separate systems, it's almost impossible to get that complete picture.
So it's like trying to solve a puzzle, but you're missing half the pieces.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you might see that a customer bought a certain product, but you don't know why they bought it or, what their experience was like before or after that purchase.
Right. And without that context, it's really hard to make good decisions.
Right. It's like you're only seeing a tiny sliver of the customer's journey.
Exactly.
So this can really impact things like marketing campaigns, product development, even customer service.
Absolutely. And it's not just about understanding customers either. Think about a media company, for example. They want to understand how their artists are performing, right? To do that, they need to look at data from all sorts of places. Streaming platforms, social media, merchandise, sales, concert attendance. But if that data is all siloed, it makes it really difficult to get those insights and make strategic decisions.
So it's not just about missing opportunities to understand your customers.
Mm-hmm.
It's about limiting your ability to make informed decisions across the entire business.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've established that data silos are bad news.
Yeah.
They create all sorts of problems for businesses. So what's the solution? How do we break down these walls and start integrating all this data effectively?
So one approach that's gaining a lot of traction is this concept of a data mesh.
Data mesh.
Yeah, data mesh.
Okay, I've heard that term thrown around, but I'm not entirely sure I understand what it means.
Yeah, so basically data mesh moves away from this traditional idea of centralizing all your data. Instead of trying to cram everything into one giant data warehouse or data lake, data mesh says, let's distribute that ownership a bit. Each team or domain should own and manage their own data as a product.
Okay, so instead of having like this massive central data repository, you're breaking it down into these smaller, more manageable units.
Exactly. And think of it like each team having their own well-maintained garden, right?
Okay.
But there are pathways connecting those gardens so you can easily access and share resources.
I like that analogy. So each team is responsible for their own data, but they're also making sure that it's accessible to other teams who might need it.
Exactly. You got it.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So this distributed approach is how data mesh aims to solve the problems created by data silos.
Right.
It makes data more discoverable. It encourages data quality by putting the responsibility on the people who know the data best, and it makes it easier to access and use that data across different parts of the organization. But I'm guessing this isn't just like flipping a switch, right?
Yeah.
There must be some challenges involved in implementing a data mesh.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It requires a pretty significant shift in thinking. And it's not something you can implement overnight. but the potential benefits are huge.
All right, so we've got a lot to unpack here. We've talked about what data mesh is, why it's important, and how it addresses the challenges of data silos. But how do we actually put this into practice? What are the steps involved in building a data mesh? Let's dive into that in the next part of our deep dive. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after a short break.
Sounds good.
Okay, so we're back, and we're ready to dig a little deeper into this whole data mesh thing.
Right.
We talked about how it's about moving away from that centralized data storage and instead letting those individual teams manage their own data.
Right.
But, how does that actually work in practice?
So let's imagine like a big e-commerce company, right?
Okay.
In a data mesh model, they might have different domains like, product or customer or orders or logistics. And each of these domains would basically be in charge of owning and managing all the data that's related to their specific area.
So instead of having this giant database that's trying to hold everything, you're breaking it down into these smaller, more manageable units.
Exactly.
With their own responsibilities.
Right.
But wouldn't that make it harder to get a complete picture of what's going on in the business?
Well, that's where the mesh part comes in.
Right.
So while each domain owns their data, they also have to make it accessible to other domains.
Okay.
And they do this through well-defined APIs and data products.
Okay, so packaged pieces of data that are ready for other teams to use.
Exactly.
So it's kind of like each team is running their own little data shop, but they're making sure that their products are clearly labeled and easy for other teams to find and use.
Yeah, exactly.
And I guess because each domain is responsible for making sure their data is good,
yeah,
other teams can trust that the information they're getting is reliable.
Exactly. They know it's accurate and up to date.
This is starting to make a lot of sense. But what about the governance side of things?
Yeah.
If everyone's managing their own data, how do you make sure that everyone's on the same page and things don't descend into chaos?
So data mesh promotes this idea of what's called federated governance.
Federated governance.
Yeah. So basically it means that while each domain has a lot of control over their own data, they all agree to follow a set of shared principles and standards.
Okay. So it's like having a set of traffic rules that everyone agrees to follow.
Exactly.
Even though they're all driving their own cars.
You got it.
So federated governance helps to keep things consistent even in this decentralized environment.
Exactly. It prevents that fragmentation that you get with silos.
Okay, cool. Now, I'm sure some of our listeners are wondering about the more technical side of things. What kind of infrastructure and tools do you actually need to build a data mesh?
Well, data mesh is really more about a change in philosophy than it is about specific technologies. But there are certain tools and platforms that can definitely make things easier.
Like what?
Well, cloud-based data platforms are a good fit for this kind of architecture.
Okay.
Because they offer the scalability and flexibility that you need for managing data in this distributed way. And then tools like Kubernetes can be really helpful for orchestrating and managing all those different data products and services.
So it's not like there's a data mesh in a box solution.
Right.
It's more about adopting this new way of thinking and then using the right tools to support that.
Exactly. And it's also important to remember that data mesh is not one size fits all. How you implement it is going to depend a lot on the specific needs and context of your organization.
That makes sense. So we've talked about how data mesh addresses the problems of data silos.
Right.
But what are some of the other benefits? What are the advantages of moving to this kind of model?
Well, one of the biggest benefits is improved agility.
Okay.
When teams own their data and can access it easily, they can make decisions much faster. And they can be more responsive to changes, which is really important in today's business world.
Right. So it's not just about breaking down data barriers.
Right.
It's also about empowering teams to move faster and be more adaptable.
And another big benefit is that data mesh often leads to better data quality.
Okay.
Because when those domain experts are responsible for managing their own data, they have a much stronger incentive to make sure that it's accurate and reliable.
It's like when you're responsible for your own garden. You're going to take a lot better care of it than if you're just tending a small patch in a giant field.
That's a great analogy. Data mesh really fosters that sense of ownership and accountability.
Okay, so data mesh sounds pretty great.
Yeah.
But I imagine there are also some challenges and potential pitfalls that we need to be aware of.
Oh, for sure. Anytime you make a big change like this, there are going to be challenges. And I think one of the biggest hurdles is often cultural.
Cultural.
Yeah. Moving to a data mesh model requires a real shift in mindset. Teams have to embrace this idea of data as a product, and they have to be willing to share their knowledge and collaborate with others.
So it's not just about implementing new technology.
Right.
It's about creating a culture of data literacy and collaboration across the organization.
Exactly.
And I imagine there are also some technical challenges, like making sure that everyone is using the same data definitions and establishing good security protocols across this distributed data landscape.
Right. All of that is really important.
So it sounds like data mesh is not a quick fix.
No.
It's a journey
It is.
that requires careful planning and execution and a real commitment to change.
Absolutely.
But the potential rewards seem worth it.
I think so too. Data mesh has the potential to really transform the way organizations manage and use their data.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about what data mesh is, why it's important, how it works, and some of the challenges involved in implementing it. But what does all of this mean for our listeners?
Yeah.
How can they take these concepts and apply them to their own organizations? We'll tackle that in the final part of our deep dive. Stick with us. So we've spent this whole deep dive talking about, data silos and this idea of a data mesh.
Right.
And how it can really change the way companies handle their data.
Yeah.
But now I want to bring it back to our listeners. What does this all actually mean for them? Like, how can they take these concepts and apply them to their own organizations?
Well, I think the first thing is to understand that data mesh isn't just, some fancy idea for tech giants.
Yeah.
Any company can benefit from these principles, no matter what size they are or what industry they're in.
Right. It's about thinking differently about your data.
Exactly.
And how you manage it.
And how you use it.
So can you give us some concrete examples? Like, how would this actually play out in a real-world setting?
Sure. So let's say you're a healthcare provider and you're trying to personalize patient care. You could have different domains for things like patient records, treatment plans, medical research data.
Right.
And with a data mesh, these domains can all work together seamlessly, which means you can make more informed decisions.
Right.
And ultimately provide better care for your patients.
Or what about like a manufacturing company trying to optimize their supply chain?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So they could have data coming from all sorts of places, like production lines, warehouses, even external sources like weather forecasts.
Right.
And by bringing all that data together,
Yeah.
they can create a much more resilient and efficient operation.
So there are applications across all sorts of industries.
Absolutely.
And it's not just about improving things internally either, right?
Right.
Like the data mesh can even help companies collaborate with each other. Oh, that's interesting. What would that look like?
So imagine a bunch of hospitals working together to share data for research purposes.
Okay.
They could share anonymized patient data securely, and that could really accelerate medical breakthroughs.
Wow. So data mesh can actually have a much broader impact than just within a single organization.
Absolutely. It can help to solve some really big problems.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So where do our listeners go from here? They've listened to this deep dive. They understand the challenges of data silos and the potential of data mesh. Like, what are some practical steps they can take to start applying these concepts in their own work?
Well, I think a good starting point is to just identify those key data domains within your organization.
Okay.
Think about which teams or departments are responsible for different types of data, and then start thinking about how you can empower those teams to manage their data as products.
So give them more ownership and control.
Right, exactly.
And then make sure that they're also collaborating and sharing that data with other teams who need it.
Yeah, it's all about finding that balance between ownership and collaboration.
And it's probably not going to happen overnight.
Right. It's a journey.
It's a process.
It's an evolution.
And it requires a lot of communication and change management.
Absolutely.
But if you're willing to put in the effort,
Yeah.
data mesh can really transform the way your organization uses data.
It can be a game changer.
Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive. I have to say, I've learned a lot about data mesh, and I'm really excited to see how companies start putting these ideas into practice.
Me too.
So if you're ready to break free from those data silos and unlock the true value of your data,
Yeah,
data mesh might just be the path forward.
I think so.
We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into data mesh. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to The Deep Dive for more insightful conversations about the world of data and technology.
And let us know what you think about data mesh.
Yeah, leave a comment below and tell us if you're planning to implement it in your own organization.
We'd love to hear from you.
Until next time.